Exactly. No, and this is why I was excited for this episode because, I think mindset, manifestation, all that sort of thing, it's coming out a lot at the minute. And you mentioned in there, a lot of people see it as very woo-woo, but, I can't stress enough how much my thought process is and everything that goes into it. I'm quite fortunate that I call myself quite a positively outlooking person. I give my wife a bit of a hard time quite often because I was saying to her, she always goes to a negative thing first, where you look at the weather and she'll look at the one thing that's there's a cloud rather than there's the sun sort of thing. So I give her a bit of a hard time about it. And I really think that it can impact your day. It can change your day. It can change your life if you're thinking in these different ways. But one thing I wanted you to kind of take a deeper dive into is, can these positive thoughts actually change our health outcome though? So can we almost manifest ourselves into, after an injury, into healing quicker?
Yes, we can. Absolutely. So I've worked with a lot of doctors, a lot of medical practices, and what they have seen, for example, even with their patients, is that the patients that have a positive outlook actually have rapid healing, have better outcomes. And so, one, we know that stress is one of our number one killers, right? Stress in the body is stress, and it does not have a positive effect. Unless you're having, like, you're playing sports, right? But even if you played sports every single day and you stressed out your body and didn't recover, eventually you'd have injuries. So not all, some stress can be good, but most of the time, if it's too much, you're going to get ill. And so absolutely, our thoughts directly affect all of our physiological outcomes. They affect our biology. For example, the Bruce Lipton, maybe you've heard of Bruce Lipton, and he had a book called The Biology of Belief. And he had they did a test there with knee surgery, and they did a placebo. Some people got the knee surgery, some people didn't get the knee surgery. Well, even the ones that did not get the knee surgery had a tremendous recovery because they simply thought that they had the knee surgery. Obviously they were volunteers. But the thing is, absolutely, our thoughts directly affect our physical body. Again, because we go back to that our thoughts create chemistry in the body. They create chemical reactions. And so if you're feeling mostly, if you're generating dopamine or serotonin or oxytocin, there's really not much damage those can do. They actually make you feel better. Your body works better. But if you're constantly triggering adrenaline and cortisol and stress in your body, then your body begins to restrict. And this is why the thoughts are so important. One, from a practical perspective, the most important thing that people need to understand is time and energy, right? Everything is time and energy. Right now, we are spending time and we are spending energy. And tonight, when we go to bed, that will be a little bit of time and a little bit of energy. And so every single thought is taking the time and the energy. And so the question is, for each human being, what do you want to do with your time and your energy in this life that will affect your physical body? And so every time we are thinking pessimistic thoughts, even about a practitioner, for example, we're not going to get the benefits. Some of the thought processes that we work on with both patients and doctors are that, one, we need the doctors themselves to actually have positive thoughts about, one, their ability based on their experience and all of the research that they've done. Two, they need to have positive thoughts about the patient. So we work very diligently with practices on clearing out negative thoughts about patients. Because if a practitioner or even an entire staff, for example, has negative thoughts about a patient, and this happens with some of the concierge practices that they have high-profile patients or clients. Well, if you are a politician and half the world hates you and half the world loves you, but now you need some medical care. So you're going to a practice, but everyone knows who you are, and half of them may love you and half of them may hate you. When you are in service to healing another human being, our job is that we have to remove, again, going back to the thoughts, any negative thoughts, any critical thoughts, any judgment thoughts of that person or patient. Because if we have those, what happens is the patient feels that. They'll say, oh, okay, they made the appointment for me. They're going to see me. They say they're going to give me the protocols, but something doesn't feel right. And that is because we have a mammalian brain and we know if people have good intentions. Maybe we don't know exactly why, but we feel it. And every patient feels that. And guess what happens for the practitioners? If a patient doesn't feel that they're being seen, that they're being accepted for the human being that they are not transparent with the practitioner. And this is how it goes beyond the energy or, they feel the energy of the blockage. No, it's actually very practical. They feel that, but guess what? They're not going to give the doctor the information that they need because somewhere within them, they already know that they're being judged. And so they cannot be transparent. And this is where there's compliance issues. And where doctors and staff are like, well, we told them what to do, but they're not doing it. There's more to why people don't incorporate or do what they know maybe they should do for their health and wellness. And then from the patient to the practitioner or to anyone that you're going to see, if you're going to a practitioner and you don't feel 100% that this is the person that's going to help me, again, you're not going to trust them and you're not going to do the things that you need to do. So the thoughts are always affecting everything we do, we feel, we say. And so it's very practical, right? It absolutely has physiological effects on the body, but from a rational and logical perspective, because nothing happens without the thoughts first. And one of the things we need in the healing process is trust. We need to have trust. We need to have compliance. We need to have desire. And if one of those is missing, there's not compliance. And without compliance, there's no healing. And so this is where the thoughts literally affect the physical healing of the body. Besides the chemical reactions, besides the stress, I actually say the cells in the body, when you are happy and you're generating dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, your cells are actually very happy and they relax and they can do their work. But it really starts with the thoughts, right? When you're having negative thoughts of aversion towards anything or anyone, thoughts of resentment from the past, right? If you're in resentment of the past, you're definitely not in the present. Your cells don't know what's wrong. They just know something is wrong. And so the cells in the body restrict. And they cannot do their work because they say, oh my goodness, my human is really pissed off. My human is very sad. My human is really angry at that person. What's going on? We have to hold on. We have to hang on and try to survive here. So the cells are in survival mode versus if you are flipping the switch, pivoting your thoughts and making yourself think a positive thought, the cells in your body are alive and they're like, okay, my human's having a hard time, but they're working at changing the thoughts. So I think maybe we can relax and do our work and help them heal and help them feel better. But it's almost like when there are children in a very chaotic home, right? The kids can't thrive if the home is chaotic, if they're hearing negative things in their house. It's exactly the same. But children in a house where there's harmony and love and positivity, they get to play and be children and have fun and do their thing and evolve and grow. And that's what we want ourselves to do.
Yeah. And we've heard you using the term interference. Is that what you was just mentioning there from like outside interference? And is that what's negatively impacting the healing process?
So there are many interferences to the healing process, right? We know the external interferences, the toxins that you either take by the food that you eat or the air that you breathe or what you put on your body, your environment, the people that you're around. These are all external toxins, external interferences. But the biggest interference are the thoughts that we have. What we allow, and not just the thoughts, because the thoughts sometimes are a result of what we allow ourselves to see. What are we allowing ourselves to look at? So you can take in interference to your healing by what you allow yourself to look at. What does that look like? No pun intended. Are you a person that's looking into the world for all of the chaos? There are people that are obsessed with the news and the negative things that are happening in the world. What are you allowing yourself to look at? If you see that there is someone that's doing something terrible in the world, are you focused on them? Is that what your focus is? When you look at every human being in your life, are you trying to look at what is good in them, what is positive in them, the value that they bring to the world as a sacred human being and a sacred vessel providing their sacred medicine? So looking that we're taking in. The eyes are constantly taking in. What am I looking at? And how am I looking at the people in my life, the circumstances in my life? What is my focus? When you're looking at yourself in the mirror, are you looking at everything that's wrong? This becomes an interference. Or are you looking at the brilliance of existing in a human vessel? At the brilliance of the human body. I don't care if you don't have all your parts or you do have all your parts. You're alive and you're breathing and you have a brain and you can still think. Are you looking at that when you look at your life and at yourself every day in the mirror, the brilliance of the sacred vessel? Then what are you listening to? This is where interference can come in or healing can come in. Again, are you listening to all the negativity in the world? Are you starting your day by listening to something motivating that can help you heal yourself? Or are you just watching, listening to everything about the wars that are going on in the world? And it's not that we're oblivious to what's happening in the world, and it's not that we don't have compassion and empathy for all of the suffering in the world, but we, as human beings, cannot suffer enough with others to heal them or help them. The way we heal and help others is by optimizing and removing the interferences that we take in. So what are we listening to? Are we listening to positive things? And then, of course, every time you speak and eat, everything that comes in and out of your mouth, it can be an interference or it can be an enhancer to your healing. What does that mean? We know about the food, but when you speak, you're also taking in. It's not one way. Why? You're generating energy that can become an interference or an enhancer. If you use your words in life to tear people down, to say negative things about yourself or anyone else, at that moment, you've generated negative energy. Why? Because you're never going to get a positive feeling back from someone if you're saying something negative about them or to them. You're going to generate more chaos, more negativity, more aversion, more separation, more interference for them and for yourself. And the opposite is true. If you're using your words to say positive things, we know there are studies that show that if you say something kind to someone, you are generating some serotonin, some dopamine, some oxytocin, but not just to the person. You're experiencing it. They are. And if anyone else hears those positive words, they also experience it. So by removing the interference and using the places that we take things in, our eyes, our ears, our mouth, our hands, what we do, right? We know this is very sad, but some people use their hands to hurt people, right? Think of the damage that causes and the interference to healing that causes, not only for the one that is being violent, but the person receiving the violence. And it just creates a ripple effect of negativity and interference to the healing process. Versus if you use your hands to pat someone on the shoulder, and say something nice, you've just generated healing energy for both of you. And again, we go back to the dopamine, the serotonin, and the oxytocin. We all want lots of that in positive ways. I know dopamine, we have a dopamine issue sometimes with social media these days. But the positive ones, just what we say, what we think, what we listen to, what we look at, all of these things can either create interference to the healing process. But I want people to really know that it's not only for ourselves. We affect everybody, even if they don't know it and even if we don't know it. And what that looks like is, for example, in long-term relationships. If you are surrounded by people that say negative things about people all the time, you know that nobody will trust that person. And so you're creating interference again. Why? To the healing process. Because we know that community is very important for longevity and for health span, having happy, positive relationships. And so this is why it is so important that we use our words, our actions, and our hands to do kind things, because that's how we create connection and community, which is one of the number one things they have in the blue zones, right?